Butterfly Hollow, a novel for ages 10 and older, by Maria Cisneros, Toth. Chapter 2. I carried my school books and swung my lunch bucket as I made my way through the hollow. Poor Momma, she hardly ever missed church, but yesterday she spent most of the day in bed with the covers pulled over her head. She blamed Otis for her headache spell and having to miss Sunday service. Dumb Otis. As I reached his broken-down shack, I got fuming mad at him all over again for hogging my strawberry biscuit. Snatching a good-sized rock off the ground, I aimed and hurled the stone. It whooshed through the air and hit one of the grimy windows. At the sound of crashing glass, I hightailed it up Stump Road, darting across the 2-lane highway toward Morgan P. Rudley School. I don't think he saw me. Then my thoughts turned to Lucy Pruitt. Morgan P. just wasn't the same without Lucy. The day Harvey Mink and Robert Lee strung Hizzy up in the schoolyard oak was the day Lucy and me became friends. I climbed into the limbs of that tree and saved her rag doll. When Lucy moved to Chicago, she wanted me to keep Hizzy. To remember me by, she'd said, with tears in her eyes. She's a scared of the dark, so be sure and give her lots of hugs. I will, I promised. I gave her my best lucky penny. We hugged and waved goodbye. That was the last time I saw Lucy. Not everyone in our town of Friendly liked chocolate folks like Lucy. Once Miss Sweetwater raised a storm of protest at a town meeting. Everyone has a right to a proper education, she said. Momma and Daddy agreed with her 100%. In the end, Miss Sweetwater got her way, mostly on account of she had schooled almost all the grown folks in town, and Daddy said they hadn't likely forgotten the sting of her paddle. But some folks were still dead set against the idea of letting coloreds mix at Morgan P. One day, Judy Sue's daddy burst into our class and hollered at Miss Sweetwater. He told her that he wouldn't have his little girl holding hands with no coloreds. After that, every time we played hand-holding games, Miss Sweetwater took one of Lucy's hands, and I held the other. Eventually, some of the women from Shantytown got together and started their own school. Probably for the best, Mama said. Maybe someday folks won't be so ignorant. Nothing could ever come between Lucy and me, not miles, not ignorant folks, nothing, 'cause we made a pact. Sisters for life. Today, Snooty Judy Sue stood at the top of the school steps and clanged the bell, while Harvey Mink and Robert Lee crouched under the stairs, spying through the slats, stealing naughty glances under the girls' dresses. "Woo-hoo!" Robert Lee chanted. "I see Margaret's holy bloomers!" "Miss Sweetwater!" Margaret stomped into the 2-room schoolhouse to tattle. I gathered my dress between my knees like knickers and edged up the steps toward the door leading into the classroom. "Look," Harvey hooted, "Charlene's bloomers are made of feed sacks." "Bet they're itchy," Robert Lee said. I thundered down the steps, curling my hand into a tight fist, but Miss Sweetwater rushed past me and got to the boys first. She dragged them into the classroom by their ears. They caught a scolding, and she ordered them to apologize to the girls in the class. Harvey and Robert Lee faced the classroom. "Sorry we saw your underwear," Harvey said. The rest of the boys snickered. Miss Sweetwater's head snapped up, and they stopped laughing. We barely took our seats when Harvey stuck his finger up his nose and dug out a booger. He stuck it to the end of a pencil, then pulled the pencil back like a slingshot and flicked it. The booger flew across the room and landed smack on Miss Sweetwater's neck as she scribbled our spelling words on the blackboard. Miss Sweetwater plucked the booger off her neck, and when she saw what it was, she spun around, pulled out a handkerchief, and wiped it off. Harvey burst out laughing, and the teacher's face flamed red as a hot poker. Next thing, a chalk eraser whizzed past like a tomahawk. It skidded across his head, leaving a broken trail of white chalk marks along his dark hair. "Ha ha ha ha!" Bobby Beans pointed. "Harvey looks like a skunk." He did look like a smelly old skunk. Harvey stink. Miss Sweetwater grabbed her paddle off the wall and smacked it against her palm. "Harvey, come here!" The class fell silent as he took his sweet time, dragging his clodhopper feet the whole way. Never knew anyone who was in a hurry to get the paddle. That swatting board could sting a bottom for a week, sometimes longer, depending on how much heart Miss Sweetwater put into each swing. Harvey stood at the front of the class. With a bit of a smirk, he bent over and held on to the back of both knees. Miss Sweetwater raised the paddle high into the air, aiming for her target. Some girls closed their eyes. Not me. I didn't want to miss a single swat. Oh, he's going to get it now. But for some unknown reason, Miss Sweetwater's arm dropped to her side. Instead, she told Harvey to stand in the corner under the flag. Shoot a pickle. After the chalk dust settled, the teacher passed around a tray filled with scraps of paper used for storytelling. The whole country was in a depression, and we had to be frugal, meaning we were dirt poor, and it would be a sin to waste anything, especially writing paper. As a special treat, you may write a story on any subject, Miss Sweetwater announced. Judy Sue flipped back one of her springy yellow curls. I'm writing about the movie my daddy's going to take me to see at the Ritz in Higginsville. Oh, brother, here she goes again bragging on herself. While we wrote our stories, the teacher gathered the little kids at the back of the room and listened as they read from their readers. About an hour later, she collected our writing assignments. Charlene, Miss Sweetwater looked down at my paper. You have such nice penmanship. Harvey stole a glance over his shoulder and screwed up his face. Miss Sweetwater caught him. Harvey! Not much got past her. We suspected she had another set of eyeballs peeking through the old lady bun sticking out of the back of her head. Now where was I? Her gray eyes met mine. Oh, yes. Please come forward and read us your story. My ears grew hot as I made my way toward the front of the room. Go ahead. She sat behind her desk. Don't be shy. You're an excellent writer. I held my paper in front of me and started out slow. The scariest day of my life. Miss Sweetwater, Judy Sue complained. I can't hear. A little louder, please, the teacher said. I cleared my throat, spoke louder, filling the room with my penciled words. The scariest day of my life was the day I came face to face with the Gator-Man. I was hunting for Indian arrowheads down at Crawdad Creek when a strange noise came from the woods. I glanced up a moment. My eyes drifted back to my paper. The next part I read slow for a scarier effect, just like on the radio program. The spooky woods. Oh, my! Miss Sweetwater clutched at her throat. I read, scrunch, scrunch, scrunch. Sounds like the Gator-Man was chomping on cornflakes, Robert Lee heckled from the third row. Robert Lee, would you like me to write a note home to your mamma? Miss Sweetwater asked. He slunk deep into his chair. No, ma'am. Miss Sweetwater nodded for me to continue reading. The noise in the woods went scrunch, scrunch. I peered above the edge of my paper. Judy Sue's mouth hung open like she'd seen a ghost. The noise came closer, closer. My heart thumpity-thumped, and I told myself, Charlene Parker, if you don't run like the devil is after you, you might never see the sun rise again. So I got my nerve, spun around, and there it stood, bow-legged, the creature with yellow glowing eyes. It was tall, scaly, and green all over, like a giant lizard. Only it wasn't a lizard. It looked more like half alligator and half human. Shoot, I ain't never going into them woods, Jimmy Bangs declared. Cy Summerfield leaned forward, not even on a double dare. I raised my hand above my head like a claw and swiped at the air, then kept reading. The creature had a long snout with sharp fangs, dripping with slimy creek moss and some blood. Its long, thick alligator tail looked like it could whip a body all the way to the moon. Maybe Mars. Ernie Spangler gasped. Mars? Aw, you're a big fat liar! Harvey broke his silence and everyone jumped in their seats. Only one who's ever seen the Gator-Man is Otis Beecher. At the back of the classroom, little Tommy Upton started to bawl. I want to go home. He ran to the teacher and climbed into her lap. The Gator-Man's going to gobble me up. I want my mama. Miss Sweetwater asked me to please take my seat. When she wasn't looking, I stuck my tongue out at Harvey. I slid behind my desk, and I got to thinking about how things really happened that afternoon down at Crawdad Creek. The Gator-Man part was real, all right. Well, sort of. Otis had told me what the creature looked like, from its crusty yellow eyes down to its hook-like toenails. He'd seen it plenty of times, prowling the backwoods behind his place late at night. Otis may be a bald-faced liar about a lot of things, but he wouldn't lie about that. Not about the Gator-Man.